Hello, this is TelecomTV. I'm Martin Warwick and I'm talking with Karl Wale, who is Director of Product Marketing at Radisys. Karl, welcome. We're going to be talking about SDN and NFV. My first question to you is, why is it so all-fired important all of a sudden? It's come out of nowhere, seemingly. Why now?
It certainly has developed very rapidly. I agree we're still at the very early stages of it, and although there are many trials going on, there's still many things to be worked out around it. There are a number of issues why it's raised its profile. Initially, from a point of view of reducing operating expenditure, that's a common theme we're seeing. Certainly from an efficiency point of view, we're looking to reduce or improve the network efficiency, which will increase or delay capital expenditure. And then beyond that, there are also revenue-generating opportunities, in particular the multi-tenancy aspect of the networks and being able to sell the services over those particular networks beyond, just the regular mobile users, for instance. So I think it actually ticks all the boxes for the network operators.
And why is SDN and NFV so important for manufacturers, for the industry in general, for telcos and for service providers?
Certainly from a service provider point of view, as we said, the cost savings and the revenue generating possibilities are there. So this is all being driven from the service provider down. It's not driven from a standards body upwards. So everyone in the industry is now scrambling to understand what it means to them. That includes the standards bodies, ETSI, ONF, who are driving different parts of it. And then obviously as you go further down the food chain into the equipment manufacturers, what does it mean for their business? There's a lot of talk of the use of IT, standard IT hardware. That's certainly one of the visions. But what does that mean to the supply chain for the equipment manufacturers and the network equipment providers? And then as you look at the enabling technology vendors that supply the equipment manufacturers, what does it mean for their business? If you're a supplier of switches or enabling platforms or enabling software, it will change your business. And how do you need to respond to that in order to have an effective system? And also from a complete supply chain point of view, we talked a lot about reliability and availability. One of the key aspects of that is when you adopt some of the SDN and NFV principles, that ownership of reliability moves from the base platforms into the higher layer orchestration layers. And that may move the responsibility from the equipment manufacturers to the operators. So there's many different things that still need to be worked out, but it will change. And now the ecosystem needs to understand how it will change and respond in a cohesive manner.
You mentioned standards. The vision that we're being sold by some of the hype merchants out there is this wonderful, wonderful world where everything's going to be software defined, it's going to be very easy to do anything, and all the world will be working together in harmony. That's not going to happen though, is it? Because there will be islands of proprietariness out there. There always is in telecoms and IT. So is that going to happen with SDN and NFV?
So from the point of view of standards and whether that would be dominated by the proprietary vendors today, that has the potential to happen in SDN and NFV. There is a strong drive and a strong desire from the operators that this is open sourced and that it's an ecosystem and it's not proprietary. But with any open source, it takes a while to develop. Players need to contribute, and we certainly need to time for this to mature. And of course, there's many other companies out there providing equipment already where it is mature already and it is actually operating reliably. If you look at many of the trials, although they're using things like OpenStack and OpenFlow, I think most people accept there are still gaps, in particular between the controller and the OpenFlow agents, the southbound interface, the northbound interface to the orchestration layer. And then even within the orchestration layers, in many ways it gets oversimplified as it's this one big block of orchestration. Well, it's not. When you talk to many of the other people out there, there's the service configuration layers, the orchestration, there's OpenStack as part of that. There are many parts. So, there's still a long way to go in terms of defining these standards and making these standards reliable, especially if the network has to attain the same reliability standards as we are, or as we enjoy today.
And what about initial use? Is SDN and NFV in use now, and if so, where? Do you have any real examples?
We are a provider of enabling technology, so we haven't started our own trials or our own work directly with network traffic. That has been really the domain of the network operators with some limited trials, of only a few hundred people, where they're actually, in many ways, testing out some of the early standards to see whether they are suitable or not. And, the feedback we're getting is that there are areas that leave a lot to be desired today. From our point of view, and this was one of the discussions we had on one of the speaking slots we had, was you need to break this up into manageable problems. So the big vision of virtualizing the complete EPC, virtualizing all of the IMS, great vision for 5 to 10 years' time. We believe, and this is endorsed by our operator surveys, that the first devices that will be virtualized as part of NFV will be things in the IMS space, things like voice over LTE, where we provide solutions around that. And also the control plane parts of it, so functions like the MME and the HSS will be virtualized. They can be more self-contained. The actual transport layer, the data plane, the part that moves the packets in the S gateway and P gateway, those will stay in more proprietary architectures, and part of that is down to the technology and the throughputs, and that actually brings you into a different part of it, which is not all of this will be realizable in commercial servers, and you get very different opinions through the rooms. Some operators are very focused on IT servers, and the reality of that, and it's actually accepted by many of the other operators, is that platforms like Advanced TCA will definitely play a part in this. And that has a more heterogeneous architecture, which is more suitable for the data plane. So I think the control plane elements first, and the data plane maybe in time, maybe never.
There's also a lot of buzz in the industry about how SDN and NFV will result in commoditization. Is that actually realizable? It strikes me that there's a lot of legacy infrastructure and networking out there. People aren't going to throw these things away and replace them completely. How long is it going to be before something happens and everything changes?
Yes. I think if you are, if you're a service provider like Google or Amazon or somebody like that, and you have a greenfield data center, you can adopt any equipment practice you want. And typically for server-based technology, that equipment practice means 1,000 millimeter deep chassis. The telco world does not come from that area. It has many central offices which were wired for NEBs. So even if you don't want to operate to those temperature ranges, you still need to provide earthquake protection. Earthquakes happen. You still, so you still need the shock and vibe requirements. You also have this equipment practice of 600 millimeter deep equipment frames with a service aisle and a hot aisle, a wiring aisle if you like. And that, unless you're going to rip out and replace your complete central office with a data center layout, that will take time. And the beauty of the cloud approach means that you can mix and match. The physical form factor is secondary to what's sitting there. So you can have ATCA systems within your central office, which are commercial off the shelf. They run Intel. You can run your control plane applications there. And where you have data centers with 1,000 millimeter deep equipment, you can use servers to complement them. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think that is how the practicality of this will roll out over the next 5 years and probably 10 years. And you'll be into a natural refresh cycle in those timeframes in any case. And each operator will make a decision whether they replan their central office to a data center format, or whether they continue to upgrade and retain the existing central office, wiring aisle, chassis depths, equipment frame depths or not.
Karl Wale, thanks very much.
Thank you.